He thanked me on stage, then walked off it, and out of our marriage. 20 minutes later, I found her bracelet in my purse. The applause hadn't even died down, people were still clapping. The air thick with victory and champagne breath. I was in the front row, holding Olivia's hand. Thomas stepped off the stage to thunderous cheers, shook hands, kissed cheeks. Then he leaned in, almost tenderly, and whispered, "We're done." I didn't ask, "What do you mean?" I didn't cry, I just blinked. He smiled for the cameras, then walked straight out of the hall. Not toward the press line, but toward the exit. I knew that walk, it wasn't a cooling off moment, it was an ending. Olivia squeezed my hand. "Mom," she whispered. I smiled at her. "He's just tired." That lie came easily. It had years of practice behind it. But something inside me shifted, a silence I didn't recognize. It wasn't shock, it was revelation. I stayed for the photos, for the speech replay, for the guests who congratulated me like I hadn't just been publicly discarded. "You must be so proud," they said. I nodded. I had written every word of his speech. The final applause was mine, too. He just didn't know it. Later, in the car, Olivia sat quietly beside me, scouring social media for pictures of her father's victory. I reached into my purse to find my lip balm and felt something strange, small, metallic, unfamiliar. I pulled it out slowly, a gold bracelet engraved on the inside. "B, you're my real win." I stared at it, not mine, not Olivia's, not a gift from any guest I knew. I turned it over in my palm, like it might vanish if I held it wrong, but it didn't disappear. It glinted under the dashboard light, a silent, undeniable confession. I didn't show it to Olivia. Not then, she had seen enough. Her silence was already speaking volumes. I tucked the bracelet back into the side pocket of my purse and placed it gently, like it might burn through the fabric. He hadn't even made it through the celebration. He used my words to build his throne, then left before the echo faded. I remembered how he paused, mid-speech, looked right at me and said, "To my wife, who's been the real architect of this journey." The audience cheered, and then he erased me. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the bracelet between two candles. Olivia was asleep upstairs. The speech I wrote still played in my mind. I'd crafted every rise, every pause. I gave him the story. He took the stage, then handed me the ending I didn't write. His coat was still on the hook, his glass still half full, but his absence was complete. He didn't call, didn't text. As if the marriage expired the moment the polls closed. I remembered when I used to keep his campaign notes in that very purse, jotted ideas, memos, drafts. I had carried his ambition for a decade, in my hands, in my voice, and now, in the place where I kept his dreams, sat the proof of his betrayal. I didn't cry, not yet. I sat in silence, letting the weight of that bracelet pin me to the moment. I thought of all the times he'd said I was his center, and I realized now I was the scaffolding, and he'd already built a replacement. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman he left me for had slipped up. She'd left her trophy behind, and now it was in the one place she'd never imagine. My hands, gifts that wasn't a purse, it was a vault, and he forgot what he left inside. He said I was the reason. He believed in himself. But the moment people started clapping, he believed he built it all alone. We met in college, not in a dorm party or at a bar, but during a student council debate. He stood up and gave a speech about leadership that was all heart, no structure. Afterward, I approached him and said, "Great voice, poor transitions." He laughed. That was the beginning. He started asking me to proofread his essays, then speeches, then proposals. I fell in love with the way he lit up when people listened to him, and he fell in love with how I made him sound like someone worth listening to. We were a team before we were a couple. Our wedding was modest, just family, backyard lights, and a homemade vow where he said, "Rachel makes words sing, and I just try to carry the tune." I framed that vow. It's still somewhere in a drawer I haven't opened since the bracelet appeared. The first few years were beautiful in a quiet way. He struggled to find work in politics. I supported us writing freelance and tutoring on the side. I remember the day he got his first assistant role in a city office. We celebrated with takeout and sparkling cider. He said, "We made it." When Olivia was born, he cried. Told me she had my eyes and his fire. We juggled like every young family. Late bills, small wins, but I always made space for his speeches. His voice mattered more than mine. At the time, I thought that was love. As his ambitions grew, I stepped back from my own. He needed someone to manage schedules, raise Olivia, keep things polished. I was proud to do it. I believed in what he was building because I thought we were building it together. The first time someone called me the congressman's wife, I smiled, not because I lost my identity, but because I thought we shared one. I didn't realize he had quietly redrawn the blueprint, with only his name on the foundation. Every speech he gave, from City Hall to the State House, had traces of me, my metaphors, my structure. My hours spent researching legislation I wasn't paid to understand. He always said, I couldn't do this without you. I didn't notice when that changed to, we're a great team, then just thanks for supporting me. The photo from his first campaign sits in our living room, him shaking hands, Olivia on his shoulders, me holding the sign that said Building Tomorrow Together. I look at it now and realize I was the only one not looking at the camera. I was too busy making sure the moment worked. There were birthdays he missed, recitals he left early, anniversaries he turned into networking dinners. But I always forgave it. I believed his cause was bigger than our inconvenience, and I convinced Olivia of the same. We stopped having real conversations around year 10. It was all logistics and timelines. Where's the speech draft? Did you email the donor list? We ran our marriage like a campaign. Efficient, polished, empty. Still, I stayed. Because when you build someone's dream from the ground up, you convince yourself that you live inside it, that you belong there, even if the door slowly starts closing behind you. I once asked him if he ever missed our early days. He said, we don't have time for nostalgia. That was the first time I felt like a staff member in my own marriage. But I kept showing up, kept smoothing his lapels. Watching him become the man I thought I helped shape, I didn't know he was already becoming someone else. Someone who would walk off stage and never look back. I was the writer of his victories, and the footnote he planned to delete. He stopped asking what I thought of his speeches, but corrected the way I said goodnight. It started slowly, like most betrayals do. The questions stopped first. He used to email me drafts at midnight, ask, is this too sentimental? Then one day, the drafts stopped coming. He said, the new comms girls quicker. I smiled, swallowed, adjusted. He became particular about how I dressed for events. Try something simpler. He said once as I held a navy silk dress, you don't want to pull focus. I wore beige that night, no lipstick. Still, someone asked if I was his campaign manager. He didn't correct them. He stopped inviting me to staff dinners, said it would be just the team. I reminded him I used to be the team. He laughed and kissed my forehead like I'd made a joke. I didn't laugh back, but he didn't notice. At home, our conversations turned to lists. Did Olivia finish the application? Did you send the thank you notes? Nothing about books. Nothing about dreams. Just items to check off, and I was becoming one of them. He changed his passwords, said the campaign required new security. I believed him. I trusted him until one night I saw a notification flash across his screen, a name I didn't recognize, followed by a heart emoji. Olivia saw it too. She looked at me, unsure. I smiled quickly and said, it's probably a group chat. She nodded. Kids learn early how to accept silence as love. I hated that I taught her that. He started staying later at work, said the office had a better vibe at night. I asked once if he wanted company. He said, it's better if I stay in the zone. I knew then, he had a zone that didn't include me. He praised Brooke a lot, said she was a natural with words, brilliant under pressure. A quick study. I smiled and nodded. But inside, I felt something shift. A writer knows when her tone is being plagiarized. He came home once wearing a different cologne, said he got it as a gift. I asked, from who? He said, from the team. I didn't ask again. Some lies don't need chasing. They're already standing still. Olivia started asking less about him. She used to wait by the window. Now she just asked, should I eat without him? I told her yes. And then cried in the pantry while the microwave hummed in the background. He missed her choir performance. Said the schedule changed last minute. But someone posted a photo of him that night, smiling, glass in hand, beside Brooke. The caption read, celebrating great leadership with great people. I showed it to no one, just saved it. He began correcting the way I spoke. Don't say fine, say great, sounds more confident. Don't use passive voice. You're too wordy. I wanted to scream. You built your whole image on my words, but I stayed quiet, out of habit, out of pride. We stopped sharing a bed most nights. He said the campaign's stress kept him up. I offered to talk. He declined. I moved my pillow farther from his and stopped trying to fill the silence. The last time I asked him if he was happy, he replied, "Do you think now's the time for that kind of question?" I never asked again. His tone had already answered, "Gives." He didn't fire me, he faded me, one edited sentence at a time. He ended the speech by thanking me, and ended the marriage by leaving before the applause stopped. Election night was loud, too many lights, too many hands. Too many half-empty glasses raised in victory, but all I saw was the outline of Thomas on stage, standing where I had positioned him for the best camera angle, delivering a speech I wrote, taking a bow I never asked for. He looked straight at me near the end. "To my wife, Rachel," he said, "you are the reason I'm here." People clapped, some turned to smile at me. I nodded, lips tight. I knew then what it meant, not gratitude, closure. He walked off the stage, shook a few hands and came straight to me, kissed my cheek like a stranger, leaned in and whispered, "We're done after tonight. I'm moving forward." He didn't look at me again. I didn't follow. I didn't make a scene. I stood there while people hugged me, told me what a strong couple we were. Olivia was at my side, dressed in navy like me. She looked up and whispered, "Where's Dad going?" I said, "To change." I didn't mean clothes. I sat through the press photos. I gave a statement when asked. Smiled as they snapped pictures of a woman who had just been discarded like a worn-out slogan. I smiled so hard my cheeks ached. Back home, I emptied my purse looking for a tissue. That's when I found it again, the bracelet, still warm from my touch earlier. This time, I looked closer. Inside the clasp, a tiny engraving, "BL, always behind you." My stomach dropped. Brooke Lancaster, his comms girl. The one he praised at every meeting. The one who started finishing his sentences, who wore my sentence structure like perfume. She wasn't just behind him, she was with him, while I wrote the script for his applause. That night, I stayed up rereading the speech, every word I had written, every phrase he performed, and then I matched it to the message Brooke had posted earlier. "Some victories are personal, this one is everything," with a photo of her hand. Wearing the same bracelet, I opened our shared cloud folder. I had access to every campaign draft, but this time, I saw something new, a file I hadn't written, titled "Private Note, Final Night." It wasn't addressed to voters, it was addressed to her. "This journey wouldn't mean anything without you. Tonight, we begin again." The timestamp was from the day before. He had written her a personal letter using my software, my laptop, my login. He didn't even bother hiding it. Just filed it under the same folder where I once kept Olivia's birthday invitations. I didn't cry. I printed it, highlighted the phrases he once used on me, phrases recycled like campaign slogans, cheapened by reuse, my words, my language, handed off like merchandise. I thought of the last speech he wrote me, a post-it on the fridge that said, "Pick up dry cleaning." That was what I had become, a service, while he rehearsed declarations for another woman behind closed doors. The next morning, Olivia said, "I heard him say something to Brooke once. I think he forgot I was there." I waited. She hesitated, then said, "He told her, Rachel's not built for this next chapter." I kissed her forehead and said, "Then it's a good thing I'm writing a new one." Gives he didn't just cheat, he plagiarized the love I gave and published it under her name. I didn't burn the speech. I archived it, right next to the version he gave to her. He didn't come home the next night, or the one after that. No apology, no explanation. Just a silence that throbbed through the walls like static. His closet still full, his name still on the mail, but his presence already a ghost. I stopped wearing my ring, not ceremoniously, just instinctively. I took it off while folding laundry, then never put it back on. It sat on the bathroom counter for days before I placed it in a drawer, next to the dried corsage from our first debate gala. I cooked dinner for Olivia, just the two of us. We didn't speak about him, we didn't have to. She watched me carefully, as if waiting for a collapse, but I didn't give her that. I gave her broccoli and space, and one uninterrupted evening of peace. He finally texted, "We'll figure this out soon. Give me some time." No punctuation, no warmth. I stared at the message, then placed my phone face down. "Some endings are cleaner when you don't reply." That weekend, I cleaned his office, not out of rage, out of reclamation. I opened every drawer, removed every framed award I helped him win, stacked them in a box labeled Thomas, private. I didn't tape it shut, let him seal it himself. I found a thumb drive at the bottom of a drawer, plugged it in, more speeches, more notes. All labeled TL, her initials. She had a folder Now, a language, a space where I used to live, I copied it all and backed it up to my own drive. Not for revenge, for memory. He called once. I let it ring, let it echo. Let him hear the sound of a woman who no longer needed clarification. You don't owe closure to someone who rehearsed your replacement before you even left the room. I emailed our attorney the next day, asked about separation procedures, sent the screenshots. The bracelet photo, the timestamp draft labeled private note, the subject line read, statement. Effects, no emotion, just evidence. I deleted our shared calendar, every color-coded event, every dinner with donors, every dentist appointment I used to manage. The screen looked cleaner afterward, blank. But full of possibility. Olivia started sleeping. Better, she stopped asking where he was, started humming again while brushing her teeth. I told her she could ask anything. She said, I don't need to, I already know. I kissed her goodnight and cried quietly in the hallway. I found the old speech notebooks, the ones from his early campaigns, my handwriting on every page, notes in the margins. Arrows pointing to punchlines. I boxed them too, then opened one. Page 47 read, and strong. Make them remember that night. I sat on the floor, surrounded by speeches and silence, and rewrote my own closing line. Not for a stage, for myself. I didn't need applause. I needed truth, and I had it, printed, highlighted, signed with absence. I made a new folder on my laptop, titled it, Rachel, unedited. Empty for now, but it wouldn't be for long. Gives he left before the ending. I stayed to write the real 1. He thought I only wrote speeches, but I also kept records, and one of them had her signature on it. I didn't go looking for revenge. I went looking for receipts, and found more than I expected. It started with a vendor invoice buried in the campaign expenses folder I had access to since the beginning. He never revoked it. He forgot I was still the administrator. The file was labeled Event Rentals, Donor Night, but inside was a catering contract signed by Brooke, not Thomas, not the finance lead. Brooke Lancaster, title listed as campaign executive, a role that never existed officially. I checked the date. It was the night of our anniversary, the night he said he had an urgent donor dinner. The bill was over $3,000, lobster wine, private venue. And a note in the comments, per Mr. Evans' private request, to guests only. I downloaded everything, labeled each file with dates and notes, printed them, not for court, for clarity. Proof that I hadn't imagined the betrayal, that I wasn't just left, I was replaced long before he walked out. Then came the hotel receipt, a boutique hotel we never stayed at, 4 miles from the campaign office, 1 suite, 1 night. Same date as the private dinner, paid for with the campaign secondary card, the one I registered for him 3 years ago. Brooke's initials were signed at the bottom of the event request. I recognized the curves, same style she used when labeling Olivia's dance recital flowers 2 years ago, when she was still just the young assistant who offered to help. I found one more file, a shared calendar event he forgot to delete, titled Final Night Plans, time, 10:30 p.m., location, B's place. Not even hidden, just minimized, like I would never dare to click on something labeled so casually. I opened the photos folder on his cloud. The shared campaign drive, synced by habit. Most were standard, flyers, rallies, press images, but one was different. A blurry selfie of him and Brooke in a dimly lit bar, her hand on his chest. The bracelet shining under low light. I sent the files to my attorney, subject line, campaign misuse, secondary evidence. She called an hour later and said, Rachel, this isn't just personal anymore. I said, I know, that evening. I printed everything, not to show Thomas, but to prepare for the board, the ethics committee, the people who still thought he stood for integrity. Let them read what I already lived. I slipped the copies into the same envelope where I once kept his first published article. It was symbolic, the beginning and the end sharing the same sleeve. I looked at Olivia across the dinner table that night. She was telling me about her project on influential women in history. Then she paused and asked, does it hurt more when the betrayal is polite? I said, yes, because it claps before it cuts. She nodded and went back to eating. I watched her, and I realized I wasn't just gathering evidence, I was reclaiming authorship. Gibbs, he used my words to climb. I used his lies to open the trapdoor beneath him. He stood at the ethics hearing and said, this is a misunderstanding. I slid the envelope across the table and didn't say a word. The room was wood-paneled and cold. Not courtroom cold, bureaucratic cold. 3 members from the ethics board, 1 lawyer, 1 staff observer. Thomas wore the same navy suit from his victory night, same polished voice. But now, it cracked between syllables. They asked simple questions. Who authorized this transaction? Why was this event not recorded on the campaign ledger? Who is BL? He deflected, smiled, played composed. Until I reached into my tote bag and placed the envelope on the table. Inside, the hotel invoice, the event contract, the catering memo with Brooke's signature, and the printout of his calendar. Final night plans. I didn't add commentary, didn't look at him. Just let the documents speak the truth. I no longer had to narrate. The board reviewed them in silence. One raised an eyebrow, another nodded once. Slowly, Thomas shifted in his chair, still trying to manage optics, still unaware the audience had already changed. They thanked me for my clarity and professionalism. I stood, nodded, and left. No speech, no closing line, just heels on polished tile and a final click of the door. Behind me, Thomas stayed seated. For the first time in years, he didn't follow that evening. The campaign issued a quiet statement, administrative restructuring. Due to internal discrepancies, his photo vanished from the fundraiser flyer. His invitation to the regional summit was postponed indefinitely. Brooke was reassigned, a polite way to say, dismissed. Her social media turned private, her bracelet, I imagined, tucked away like a bad investment. She lost nothing material, but everything symbolic, because now, everyone knew where that bracelet had been found. Thomas sent a text 2 days later. I didn't think you'd go that far. I didn't reply. I just stared at the message while sipping coffee and watching Olivia reread her ethics project. Sometimes the best response is documentation. My lawyer finalized the custody arrangement. Olivia stays with me. He didn't contest it. How could he? The receipts had done more than outline a betrayal. They rewrote his entire character profile in ink. I received a letter from the board. Thank you for your detailed cooperation and contribution to CAM. Pain transparency. I framed it. Not to hang, just to keep, as proof that silence, when backed by truth, doesn't need volume to win. At the next school event, I walked in alone. Held my head high. The whispers came, not about scandal, but strength. People who once overlooked me now nodded. One said, "You carried that with grace." I said, "I carried facts." I didn't need revenge headlines. I needed the equilibrium of quiet justice, the kind that doesn't scream through social media, but sits in meeting rooms and removes names from podiums. That night, I burned the first draft of his campaign launch speech. The one I wrote on a napkin years ago, not out of anger, out of closure, out of the knowledge that he stood on something I built, and that foundation no longer held him. He delivered a public rise on my words, and collapsed under my silence. He walked off the stage and never looked back. I stayed in the silence, and rewrote the ending. The house is quiet now, but not empty. The silence here has changed. It no longer feels like the space between arguments, it feels like breath. I moved my workspace to the sunroom, the one he never used. Light spills onto the table, where I now write speeches again, but only for women who know their own voice. Olivia flourishes in the stillness. She laughs louder, hums in the shower again. Her drawings are brighter, fuller. The stick figures now stand taller. Last week, she handed me one with 2 women holding hands. She said, "It's you and me," standing still while everyone else runs. I kept the envelope, the one I handed to the board. It sits in the drawer where I used to keep his cufflinks. I don't open it, I don't need to. Its silence has already spoken in rooms where noise once reigned. My name is no longer attached to his campaigns, his speeches, or his legacy, and yet, mine has never been more intact. Because the truth doesn't vanish when someone walks away. It just waits for the right person to carry it forward. I see him sometimes, in news articles, in photos, standing near but never quite in the center anymore. His smile looks more practiced, his words more hollow. He still speaks, but no one wonders who wrote it. I don't miss him. I miss who I was before I tried to become so useful now. I wake without waiting, I sleep without tension, I speak without checking who might be listening. I became my own audience. The campaign trophies are gone. In their place, on the shelf, a single framed quote. Some women build empires, others dismantle illusions. I wrote it for me. For every woman who once handed over her pen. People ask me if I'll write for politics again. I say, only if she knows who she is without the applause. Because I've learned, applause can't be trusted, but silence always tells the truth. Thomas never apologized. He never explained, but he no longer gets to. I have the final draft, the full version, the real speech, and it doesn't need his approval to be powerful. I donated the beige dresses. Kept the navy one, the one from the night I stood alone, holding my daughter's hand with a gold bracelet burning in my purse. The night I was discarded, and the same night I began taking inventory of what I was never meant to lose. I wear perfume again. A new scent, cedar, citrus, ink. It smells like permanence, like someone who doesn't need to beg to be remembered, like a woman who knows what it means to write herself back into the story. And when people ask what happened, I tell them this, Gives. He left right after the speech, but I kept the mic, and this time, I didn't hand it back.